Live in New York on this 30th of July. It is time for some headlines. Let's go Packers. Let's go lead block.
Lead block. Let's do it.
Okay, saga's over-ish. According to our very own Tom Pelissero, the Packers and Aaron have agreed to a reworked deal, moved around some cash, freed up some decimal points, did the whole thing with the cap room for Green Bay in their favor. And for Rodgers, the length of his deal goes from 3 years to 2. Money speaking wise, I know it's not important or a driver for him, also worked out for Mr. MVP. Tom P. also points out that the way his contract is structured, Rodgers cannot be tagged after 2022. So if he plays out the next 2 years, he would be indeed a true free agent. Breaking down this, we've got tons of headlines to get to this morning right here at the breakfast table. What do we make of the reworked Rodgers deal, Nate?
I feel like he's laying down the blueprint for premier athletes, superstar athletes, maybe even megastar athletes to control the narrative at the end of their contracts if they don't like it. I mean, this is unprecedented. I know we've seen it before in some form or fashion, but for everything that went on this offseason, and him to land, to walk into training camp just minutes before it kicks off, and then us here less than a day or two later, that they have worked out a deal where they basically are chopping off the end of his deal, putting him in a position where he's only playing a couple of more years. And who's to say that next offseason, he doesn't do the same thing? And they allow him to walk completely or just trade him. And that might be it as well. 2022 might be on paper, but they might trade him before they even get to that point. So this is big. It's really big. You know what? I respect Rodgers for it. Whether you're a Green Bay Packers fan and you don't agree with it, and you're like, you know what? You signed that piece of paper. That's your contract. You need to ride this out because you're our guy. We've been supporting you forever. Yeah. I kind of look at it a different way. If you have enough power, then you wield it in this situation. And if everything works out, it's all good. I know we'll talk about it here in a little bit, but if it doesn't work out, then it's all bad.
It's crazy because he did wield his power. And who has more power than Aaron Rodgers? Nobody. And it still didn't shake the house. Like, he's still there.
Yep.
He's still here. We're still talking about him. It's hard to make sense of this. Like, what is just the basic bottom line? So he's under contract for 2 more years. Like, that's all we know. And maybe this made him a little bit easier to trade him. But still, we're talking about they'd have to trade Rodgers. Like, that would be still nuts. And I think a lot of what's interesting about it is take the contract ins and outs aside. How is he going to play? How are these next 2 seasons going to go? Because let's just say Rodgers gets to the Super Bowl this year. Let's say they win it.
Okay.
Let's say the 2022 season, he's an all-pro. You're not going to keep him? You have to. He's still the top quarterback in the league. And then it's also interesting because then that would be 3 years on the bench for your first-round draft pick, Jordan Love. That doesn't make sense. So it's still unbelievably messy, and I just think one more little dollop of mess on top of it.
Give me it.
What's the deal with Devontae? So Devontae doesn't have a deal. Doesn't sound like he's ready to bend over backwards to sign a deal. So is he going to play this thing out? Because then are we talking about some massive, like, we're going together orchestration? Like it's Jordan and Pippen together? I don't know. And it's 2 years feels like a long time from now. Like so many, inner squabblings and egos. And like, I find it hard to believe we're going to be sitting here 2 years from now being like, so what's up with Rodgers? I just don't know if they're going to get there. And I don't know how. So my bottom line is, I guess, Sean, we're still here. I'm very confused, and I wish it was kickoff today.
Seems like a typical Friday.
You didn't even mention
right?
where Randall Cobb's going to go in all of this.
Oh, we'll get to Randall.
Dollop.
I know. All right. It's a great point. But what do you got, Sean?
Yeah, everybody's expecting Cobb to ball out. Look, the contract, to me, it's a non-factor. Like, nothing has changed. Look, I get it. All right, fine, you lopped off a couple of years. AR was going year to year anyway, so there was no new money. I mean, it just sounds like a lot of fluff. You know what it sounds like? It's a lot of, it's a lot of whites, a lot of underwear. And I get it. The ringer cannot look empty, dude. So it's just kind of a whole lot of nothing. And I really look at it like, for Aaron Rodgers, it was more about the relationship and the compromise. Any great relationship that anybody's ever been in, look, you have some compromise, and it wasn't about the contract that he really wanted. He said it wasn't about the money. It was never about that. It was about being appreciated, not being taken for granted, and being allowed to, as you talked about it, look, people are coming here to play with me.
Yep.
They're coming here for me.
Yep.
Let me have a say in some of that, and let me help me help you.
Help me help you. I like that.
I mean, losing that 3rd year off his contract gives the Packers more flexibility, gives him more flexibility going forward. A compromise, as you said. Win-win going forward. It is a bit messy, though. NFL Network's got boots on the ground at all training camps around the league. Our guy, Steve Mariucci, caught up with the Packers head coach, Matt LaFleur, yesterday, asking him about the return of his MVP QB.
Well, Aaron Rodgers is back. and I know he thinks the world of you, and I know you guys have a great relationship. What kind of communication did you have up until the other day?
Yeah, there was consistent communication, even when I didn't get a hold of him in terms of text messages or whatnot. But, you know, I had a pretty good idea of what needed to happen, and thankfully it did happen, and we have him here, and we're really excited about this season. And I mean, this guy's been doing it for such a long time at the highest of levels, and no, he looks great. I think he's in a great place mentally. I know his teammates were excited to get him back here, and you know, it's just been great energy throughout the whole, you know, we've only been in it 2 days, so, but the energy from everybody has been outstanding.
There's a
Truth.
All right, we heard from Matt LaFleur there, talked about him a bunch on the show just yesterday. Rodgers is back. Everyone's excited. Teammates excited. A lot of great energy out there, especially with the fans in Green Bay, at least for now. How much longer do you think Aaron Rodgers' future is going to be a distraction for this season, Nate?
It's not a distraction right now.
It's not.
Because he just showed up.
Yes.
It's all good in the hood, right? Aaron Rodgers shows up, just like every other team that has Super Bowl aspirations. They are Super Bowl contenders. But as soon as it falls apart, then everything points back to this offseason. It might even point back to this past 24 hours where people point to this contract and say, well, the season's not going well. We're getting heavily criticized. Like, why would I have the back of Aaron Rodgers, who doesn't want to be here, probably is going to get traded next year after we're done, Davante Adams, who wants more money than he wants a Super Bowl. And this isn't a shot at Davante. I don't want Davante to hear this or Aaron Rodgers. I'm just saying there could be some players in that locker room, Sean, and I know you feel me on this, that aren't looking at Aaron Rodgers and Davante as the big brothers. They're looking in the mirror saying, what about my contract? What about my career? I thought this was ride or die for the squad. Sure. I thought it was these colors, they live inside me, and I bleed them. No. That isn't the case anymore when you see Davante and Aaron Rodgers from what it looks like, outside looking in, having a very selfish approach to their career over the next 2 seasons. So when it's all good, it's good. If they win a Super Bowl, you won't hear a peep out of the Packers organization. But as soon as there's a problem, offense doesn't play well, somebody gets injured, it doesn't go the way they want, you'll start hearing these whispers because guys are thinking about the mass exodus between Aaron Rodgers and Davante. They're not necessarily thinking about 5-6 years from now that could be the goal of creating a dynasty. It doesn't seem like we're going to get a dynasty.
What happens with Randall Cobb drops it on 3rd and 7? And a crucial play. None of that.
That doesn't matter.
If he doesn't perform those wide receivers like Equanimeous St. Brown.
Well, I got takes on Cobb. I think Cobb's a great topic.
Yeah.
I really do. Because he's sort of like, I don't know, almost like the other woman or the other man in this. Like, it's very personal with Cobb. And I think, Nate, to what you're saying, the luxury they have is the football's always good. They're not going to struggle. They're not. They're going to go up and down the field. They're incredible. I don't think football-wise they'll struggle. I know you disagree. That's fine. All right, the good is I really think that all these guys ride with Rodgers. I really do. The Lazards, the MVS, I think they know what time it is, and I think if they didn't ride with him, we would know. And there'd be leaks and comments, and maybe there will be, but not now. The Cobb thing. What I did not like from yesterday is Brian Gutekunst in his press conference came out and just straight up admitted Cobb is only here because Rodgers wanted him, which I don't think is good in terms of Cobb's welcome. He's a great guy, super hard worker, and a beloved player. He's like, well, you're only here because he wanted you. But let me just